The Ahmadiyya Muslim Community USA completed its second day of the 3-day annual convention, or Jalsa Salana, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Today, the men and women held parallel sessions in the morning and afternoon. There were various speeches and meetings throughout the day. The speeches on the women's side stressed leading a simple life, focusing more on spirituality and less on materialism. On the men's side, the first speech was delivered by Wasim Sayed, entitled Latinos in the Americas, Reclaiming an Islamic Heritage. Mr. Sayed, who has volunteered extensively in Latin America, spoke about the need for volunteers as there is a great interest about Islam in Latin America and Mexico. The next 4 speeches were geared more for the youth and how to avoid the ills of society. Each year, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community invites public officials as well as other guests to attend the convention. The guest session began with a presentation about religion, freedom, and peace by the National Director of Public Affairs for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community USA, Mr. Amjad Mahmood Khan.
Ladies and gentlemen, against this true and accurate picture of Islam that I have just described, consider for a moment whether ISIS can in any way be representative of Islam. Where the Quran teaches to protect religious houses of worship, ISIS torches churches. Where the Quran teaches not to coerce others in matters of faith, ISIS forces Christians and Yazidis to submit to Islam or face death. Where the Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, called for the personal protection of Christian monks, ISIS beheads Christian pastors. Where the Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, called for legal protections of non-Muslim minorities, ISIS imposes a perverted and unjust legal code on all of its captives. Where the Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, championed women's rights, ISIS rapes and enslaves women. Where the Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, called for the protection and preservation of sacred structures, ISIS destroys historic monuments and artifacts, including Muslim mausoleums. ISIS is not and will never be Islam.
Dr. Robert George, chairman of the bipartisan and independent U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, spoke about the lack of religious freedom in many parts of the world.
And from these examples, one thing is clear. Those behind the persecution of your community are among the world's worst enemies of human rights and dignity. But as I stand before you today, I am honored to be addressing a movement of people who refuse to be merely victims of tyranny, but who insist on being as you are, and I salute you for being this, champions of freedom.
This year, the community gave its humanitarian award to 2 individuals, Bill Ayers, the co-founder of Why Hunger, and Congressman Mike Honda of California. Both men accepted the award in person and remarked,
I'm honored to be honored by you and to be welcomed into your community. 40 years ago, a young singer by the name of Harry Chapin and I had a dream, and that was to fight hunger here in the United States and around the world. And we have an organization that we call Why Hunger. It's a strange name maybe, but we ask the question, why is there hunger in a world that can feed itself? You all know that there's enough food in the world to feed everyone, and yet we have almost 1 billion people who are hungry. And here we have the richest country in the history of the world, and we have about 48 million people who are hungry. And so we ask the question, why? And unless you ask that question, you can never get to any kind of an answer.
I am honored to be here and accept this award in the true spirit of Islam, in the spirit of peace. As was mentioned, I met His Holiness, Mirza Masroor Ahmad, and he has said, to achieve peace, we must embrace the ideas of loyalty and love for one's nation. We must embrace just relations between nations, and he said that we must embrace global unity. When I first met him, I was in his presence at the mosque, the Masjid Rahman, in Silver Springs, Maryland. It was a long drive for me, but the drive was so much worth it because being in his presence, then seeing the MKAs, the young people there, it lifted me, it lifted my spirit because it told me that there is hope, there is love, and there is aspiration for peace and love in this country. To this date, you have collected enough blood to save 100,000 lives, and that is truly commendable. And I see folks giving their blood today, and those who do not like Muslims will never know that it's your blood that's in their body. Isn't that right? So sooner or later, every person who receives blood will end up being Ahmadians.
Other guests who were in attendance had an opportunity to address the delegates. They ranged from State Department officials to state representatives to ambassadors, UN officials, and professors. The day concluded with a special dinner reception for the over 400 guests in attendance. Sania Ahmed, MTA News, USA.